What you just said about eliminating the judgment, that's the most important part, because everybody has a version of it, and everybody is trying to figure out ways to escape their own reality, even just for a brief minute, and they don't know why. Most people are living in shame and embarrassment and in the shadow and unable to talk about it, unable to even understand as to what it is, why it is, that it's not what you think it is. I agree with you. That is the message of this podcast.
What's up, brother? How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Friday, feeling fine.
Feeling good, huh? It's funny because I just was watching this video and we were talking about what are we going to do for today's topic? And for some reason, it just kept coming up, this whole anti-aging thing. And specifically, I was looking at this dude right here.
Yep.
He is Brian Johnson. He is so fascinating because I don't know if you followed what he's doing, but he basically.
Yeah, I heard him on Rich Roll. Incredible conversation.
What'd you think? Crazy, huh?
I mean, I went into it being like, this guy's a fucking kook. Just seeing him from social media, and that's my only clips here and there. And I went into it and somebody told me to watch it. Somebody was like, yo, you gotta check out this conversation. And I was like, nah, I don't know, man. But they were like, just trust me. And so I went into it very skeptical, but I came out of it like, wow, what he's doing is so much deeper than just the social media entertainment factor of it. It's very impressive and interesting.
He's a lunatic.
But he might be paving the way for the rest of us,
Yeah. I mean, what I found fascinating. So in this picture right here, what this is about is he's holding a bottle of blood because he did transfusions with his son. He took his son's blood and did transfusion. So little backstory on Brian Johnson. He was a tech guy, sold his company for millions, and then just decided that he was going to plow all that money into figuring out not how to live longer, but how to live forever.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of a lunatic in that respect, right?
Yeah, he's saying theoretically you could out-engineer death, which is, I don't know. Can you? Maybe.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I mean, so, it goes into, for me, listen, I'm all about, stopping aging and even reversing aging. I guess what kind of brought this up was I was putting together a video, recently for myself, just kind of announcing this show and the protocol and everything that I do. And I was showing someone and they're like, dude, how in the world is it that you are, here, I'll put some of it up. Is how in the world is it that you're 55 years old and you roll
I saw this.
That?
When you said this to me yesterday, I'm like, damn, bro, this guy's fucking looking like a stud.
But really, it highlights for me, what
that you're doing the right things.
Obviously. Yeah, for me, what aging and the whole protocol and all this is I just want to be able to I want to be able to surf the waves I want to surf. I want to be able to compete in jiu-jitsu. I want to be able to roll with guys who are 20 years old, and continue to do that until I'll be 56 in 2 months. I want to continue to do that till I'm 70, and so the quest for me is just, it's not about necessarily living forever like Brian Johnson, but extending our youth. How do we extend our youth to the point that we have not a longer lifespan, but we have a longer health span?
Yeah, sure. Time spent more doing the things that you want to do in the way that you want to do them and feeling good about it.
Yeah. But that's, it's not easy. It's funny because, and I'm sure you encounter this also because you work out and you strive for health and, you're doing all these things. You obviously, my experience, the crazy experiences that I've had, recently, I went to a friend's funeral not too long ago, and last year. And dude, I don't know if you've experienced this yet, but I met some people that I went to high school with and shook their hands, and I couldn't even recognize them.
Yeah.
Like I felt like I was looking through a mask, an old age mask of someone, and I was like trying to figure out, who is this person? And then I was like, holy shit, how are you 80 years old right now? And I could tell that they were looking back at me going, holy shit, you don't look like you've aged,
Yeah. 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 No, I encounter that a lot too. A lot.
It's heavy, right?
Sure,
I mean,
I'm sure it's definitely heavy. And I'm 42, so I can imagine that from here, the cliff is just going to get steeper and steeper.
Dude, the older you listen, man, the older you get, you start having people that just die, and you're like, what happened? Yeah. Oh, he had, heart attack. He had, it's usually a heart attack. It's usually something like that. But, I started knowing people that had heart attacks at like 40.
Yeah, sure.
And, or have diabetes or, whatever it is. And those are, there are genetic components to that. But,
but what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like,
it's lifestyle.
What are you doing?
Man.
Yeah.
It's
there's so much that you can do. There's so much that you can do that can create solid impact that it's like, it's really hard to make any sort of argument of why you're not doing stuff,
I know, man. There's a million reasons why we can, make an excuse for not to do it. Anyways, one of the things that came up is that I was watching the other day. It came up on my feed. This thing with Lenny Kravitz, and Lenny Kravitz is just putting out a new album. There's actually some
like a
really
fucking vampire,
bro. He's 60 years old. Look at this dude.
I know. Yeah, he's like the vampire of the stat, man.
Years old, man. Is that crazy or what? I know.
That's wild.
I looked at it and I was like, oh my God. But the thing about Lenny is that I remember even, 20, 30 years ago, him talking about his diet, for him, like there's this video right here where he kind of gives a tour and of an Airstream that he lived in. And he's talking about how on the refrigerator, he's got a picture of Bruce Lee for inspiration. But the reality is Lenny has been a vegan forever.
Wow.
Yeah. So the dude is a vegan. And he eats raw a lot of the time. But, when you're a vegan for that long, the reality is that, like when I'm coaching people, I never stress the fact that they need to go vegan because I think it's very difficult, cutting something out. And I think it has to be like a journey. Like I
would struggle with that deeply.
It's hard. I remember when I quit eating meat, I think I was 17 when I first stopped eating meat, but I stopped eating red meat, and then it probably took me 6 months to get to the point where I stopped eating like chicken fingers and chicken wings because I love them, right? And so it was like a process. It was a process. And then like through the years, sometimes I'll add fish in my diet and sometimes I won't. And sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'll go through spells where I rarely eat any kind of dairy at all, but sometimes I do. Like I love pizza, man. And sometimes, if I'm going to cheat, then I'm going to have good pizza. I'm Italian, man. I love pizza, dude.
Yeah. And there's just certain aspects of food to where it's like, you got to have pleasures in life, you got to like certain things you just got to have.
Yeah. Well, control. In that interview with Lenny, he talks about that. They're like, do you ever have a cheat day? And he's like, oh yeah. And they're like, what do you eat when you cheat? And he's like, waffles and syrup and bread and, any just carbohydrates, carbs.
Yeah,
But
of course.
it sounds to me, and this is one thing I've always stressed with people is that it's really about the rule and not about the exception. People want to point to someone. People will say, "Oh, but Lenny Kravitz eats waffles, with maple syrup and probably powdered sugar, whatever." They do that to make an excuse for themselves, because what they're not emphasizing or catching hold of is that the rule for Lenny Kravitz is that he does not eat waffles and syrup. He occasionally eats waffles and syrup.
Sure.
Yeah.
So there's it's figuring out. I think like different people have, like I feel pretty confident on the level of like different people's systems process things differently. But the work you have to do is find out some sort of a system and put real effort and time and discipline into sticking to some, because I feel as though like when I'm on a very even diet of mostly low carb, protein, but not crazy, like, gorging, and really not doing, alcohol or and not doing like crazy fried shit. Like when I'm on that for a extended period of time, like my system burns better, and like it's obvious. And when you start veering off, you start feeling it. So it's like, but I think a lot of people haven't even gone as far as to do the work to find out, like, okay, on this particular diet and system, my system burns good. Like you have to do that work. You have to like try things, add things, subtract things to figure out, what's going to work for you. And I think people don't even get that far, let alone subscribe to any one individual system.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think though, for the most part, there are rules, and everyone is a little bit different, but there are pretty hard and fast rules, which are that, carbohydrates and refined sugars are not good for anybody. Nobody. At all. And even so far as breads and, rices and all that, we should cut that back. I remember years ago, like 1985, right? My father ran casinos, and he was running casinos in Curacao, which was an island off of Venezuela. And he told me he met like this old black guy. He goes, dude, this guy was like 95 years old and he looked like he was 40. And I was like, really? And I was like, what does he do? And he said, and this is the first time I ever heard it, was he eats no carbohydrates. He eats he eats no rice, and would only eat like fresh fish and fresh vegetables. And I had never heard at that time, like, oh, because the guy told him, he's like, I don't eat any rice. And at the time I was like, well, rice is good for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was a time when we just didn't know. And now, we know that like excess carbohydrates cause inflammation. They cause insulin resistance, insulin spikes. So I do think there's a level, but what current like scientific research, which is now we're almost half a century from back when I first heard that, is that what we do know is that people don't have to cut meat. That's not the issue. The issue is the carbohydrates and eating enough plants. Got to get enough plants. We have to eat fiber, even if it's cooked. Like Lenny does a lot of raw. I don't necessarily know that makes any difference. just that we're eating plants. And so the research shows we should try and eat like 30 different plants a week, even if it's just a few. Like I'll get a bag. I will get a bag of like a spring mix that has or an herb mix where it has all different kind of salad type things and different herbs, because each of those is like a different plant towards the 30.
Yeah.
And so, but dude, I'll tell you, one of the things that I found, I don't know how it's been for you, is that whatever I'm doing habitually becomes easier.
Sure.
So if I've gotten to sometimes I'll get to a place where I'm making like more like beans and things like that for lunch, and I'll get away from salad, it becomes harder for me to get back into eating salad just because of the simple fact that for a week I haven't done it.
Sure. I like to stick with the same thing over and over again. I'm spoiled because my wife, who's amazing, like makes me food to bring with me. But like, I'll eat the same thing like for weeks and weeks and weeks. Like, as long as it, like with me, I'm very not. And now once again, I don't cook for myself, so to me, food is like it's fuel. Like I enjoy it when it's good, but I also like it to be simple and like I consume it and then I keep going.
You're very lucky. Because I think some people, because I'm like that also, I think we're both very lucky in that respect. That's what I'm saying, is that I think that a lot of these things are learned.
Sure.
And so when we indulge, dude, Miyamoto Musashi talked about this, do not eat food for food's sake. I think he talked about it in the Dakota, is do not, the more, because what happens is we distort we're creatures of habit. We distort our taste buds, and all of a sudden you need richer and richer food.
Yeah. And some people like it's
simple
it's
foods, we can't enjoy them.
Yep. And some people have it as a vice. Like, I have other vices, definitely. So I'm definitely, I am not without sin. But like food as an adult, I think I've, like throughout my 30s and 40s, definitely since my 40s, like I feel like I have that one kind of under control, like for the most part, but some people, that's a gateway to hell for them. Some people, food is a very difficult thing to master.
Oh my gosh. I have one of my clients that I work with I think he was like 450 pounds and been working with him for, like a year and a half. And he finally went on Ozempic and he's lost so much weight. It's been amazing. But, part of the issue is that we talk about a lot is when you take away, because I've had to research like Ozempic and Mounjaro a lot because of this. And so when you take away someone's coping mechanism, which is, whatever it is, alcohol, drugs, whatever, the underlying stress is still there. And so when food is the thing that we use to deal with that very, very, very real and very uncomfortable feeling of stress, it's like, well, what do you replace it with? Because food is powerful. I heard this years ago that food is a drug, and it's a drug in the sense that the moment you take it into your body, it changes your physiology.
Yep. And then there are all sorts of emotional states attached to that.
Exactly.
All sorts. Like you said, coping mechanism. That's what it is. I'm uncomfortable. I'm stressed. I'm tired. I'm nervous. You know what I mean? Fucking sleeve of cookies will fucking numb me up for a little bit.
No doubt.
Until I have to shit my pants.
Dude, And I'm kind of laughing because we all, we're all guilty of it. If there's one thing, if we could put one message out there to people with this video podcast, all whatever you want to call it, the message I would like to put out to people is that let's strip away the morality judgments of coping mechanisms. Fucking strip it away and don't say this coping mechanism is bad, this one is good. Let's just look at them and say we as human beings need coping mechanisms. So let's get real about that. And let's start identifying why we're in a state that we need a coping mechanism, and then starting to alleviate or at least reduce what puts us in that state. To me, go ahead.
I think what you just said about eliminating the judgment, I think that's like the most important part, because I think that's what holding it's true, man. Everybody has a version of it, and everybody is, trying to figure out ways to escape their own reality, even just for a brief minute, and they don't know why. And, and a lot of people, most people are living in shame and embarrassment and in the shadow and unable to talk about it, unable to even understand as to, what it is, why it is, that it's not what you think it is. I agree with you. I think that is the message of this podcast. That's the message of just, trying to optimize and be a better human,
Yeah. And it's wild, right? Because, and then because what happens is I think you really hit on it. It's like, people don't even know why they're feeling this way, and they need this coping mechanism, right? And then they indulge in whatever coping mechanism works. And because, like we said earlier, we're such creatures of habit that then we develop really roads through our brain, which get deeper and deeper and deeper as the more we do them. And so we're creatures of habit. So if you use food again and again and again, then before you know it, you're addicted to it, or pornography, or gambling, or alcohol, or meth,
social
or whatever
media,
it is.
Likes, and
social
comments.
Media, it doesn't even matter.
All of it.
Fill in the blank. So I don't think that it's so unconstructive to have judgments over coping mechanisms, right? It's fucking bullshit is what it is. And so I think, it's interesting because a lot of people might look at this and say, oh, this is spiritual work because you're cleaning yourself up and you're trying to elevate yourself. And to me, it's science. It's pure science. What is it that's putting you in this psychological state, this physiological state that is causing you to need the coping mechanism, right? And anyways, I'll bring it back to, what we're talking about today with aging. I think that until we really get a hold of what is putting us in that state of dysregulation of the nervous system, that state of dysregulation is really stress, is what that is. It's stress inside of the body. And the number one cause of aging is stress.
Yeah.
People want to look at, oh, can I do a blood transfusion? Can I take TRT? Can I take HGH? Can I use red light therapy? Can I use cold plunges? Can I use the number one freaking thing that we can do is eliminate stress. People who live a more carefree and chill life age slower. That's the number one thing we can do.
It's hard in the modern context. It's difficult. Gotta deprogram and unlearn a lot of shit that you've already learned. I think about it all the time. I think about, like, it's very obvious to me that simplification would create a better reality for me personally. But once I begin thinking about simplification, the labyrinths of, fabric that's weaved together in terms of all the different things, you know what I mean? It becomes immediately overwhelming. And it's like, well, where do you start? You know what I mean? Like, how do you, where do you start? And, like, how do you prioritize? It's complex, especially like,
simplifying is complex. Another paradox, right?
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Right. Yeah. That brings, one of the reasons that I went to Sicily is because I really wanted to go to Sardinia, which is a blue zone. I wanted to see how people lived in, a more Mediterranean lifestyle, right? Mediterranean diet is a huge thing. And blue zones, if you watch the Blue Zone documentary on Netflix, what you realize is that I think the thing that struck me is these people live a very, very chill life compared to us.
Yeah.
And that, for me, coming from America, was like, holy shit. Like, I think I've told you a million times, the moment in Sicily that it was lunchtime, the whole island shut down.
Yeah.
You want to go buy a phone? You're not buying a phone until 4 o'clock.
There's a lot of no's.
No, everything's shut down. They shut down, right? And so they're chilling. And so 12 o'clock would hit, I would grab lunch, and then I would be like, the hell am I going to do now? So I was in my apartment, and I would just turn off, because it was hot. I would just shut all the windows and doors and make it black, in the room. And I would just kind of lay there and just chill. And after like a month of doing that and detoxing, it became like, this is the way we should be living,
Yeah, you feel the internal rhythms of, like, your spirit, and you feel it's just like moving at a just nicer pace. Yeah, there's no question. I've experienced that, myself.
Okay, so let me ask you: do you, after lunch, do you ever lay down or chill, or what do you do?
Bro, I am nonstop fighter fucking pilot, fucking nonstop, constantly. And if I'm not doing something, I got my fucking phone in my hand, and I'm like reaching into, all of the infinite universes that exist, via the iPhone. Like, thank God I sleep well. You know what I mean? Like, I generally sleep well. But if I didn't, I don't think I would, I take care of myself. I make time but I am going all of the time.
Wow.
And it's not great. But I mean,
but you talk about simplifying. It's like, there's so many ways we think about simplifying, like simplifying your living space, simplifying your schedule. It's like, but part of
it's needing less, right?
What's that?
I guess it's needing less. If you need less, then you have to, and I guess that just it comes down to financially, right? Like, if your need to consume financially, the lower it is, the less time you have to spend
hustling,
focused on income.
I know, or anything really, Yeah, I mean, it's that detox for me started really in the van, when I was living in a van. I mean, obviously, it became like, dude, you've got this much room. What are you taking?
Yeah,
how many pairs of shorts do you need? How many pairs of underwear do you need? How many pairs of shoes do you need?
100%.
I went through. Go ahead.
something that I like hit me, like I think I was probably like maybe smoking some pot, and it hit me like in a real like heavy moment. Like I thought about like garages, and like in America there's like millions and millions of garages, and they're just places for people to put shit that they don't need and don't use. Like they're literally like, if you took all of the garages in America and stacked them on top of each other, how much stuff and space would that be? That is just irrelevant, obsolete, unnecessary, not utilized. How much like kinetic energy could be released if that was just like wiped away, and like now we got more white space. It's crazy when you think about it.
And yeah, and I think it's indicative of the fact, we're such a consumerist society, but we're not. What people, I think you hit on it right there. What people don't realize is we're not just consumers; we're hoarders.
Yeah,
we are hoarders. Everywhere I go here in Miami, everywhere I go, other parts of Florida too. Everywhere I go, I cannot believe the amount of self-storage places.
Yeah, here too.
That's just an extension of hoarding.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the billions of dollars of shit that is in all those storage units that will never be used ever?
It's gonna be thrown away.
It's just going to be thrown away. Yeah. Someone told me that a long time ago. They're a realtor, and they were like, what happens when you're in real estate long enough, what happens is you end up getting pulled into like estate sales, where people die. Sure. And he's like, let me explain to you what happens when you die. Is all your kids and your relatives, they come over and they look at all of the shit that you've hoarded, and they throw it all away. People take a few things here and there. 99% of all the things that you just could not get rid of because fill in the blank, because this person and this person, no one wants it. Your kids don't want it. Nobody wants your shit. You know what I mean? And they just throw it away, So yeah,
it's got to be hard. It's got to be hardwired into like who we are as like a species. You know what I mean? It's got to be like hardwired in there on a certain level, because you and I can sit here and talk about it right now, and it's pretty obvious. You know what I mean? And we're not the smartest guys in the world, but like, it's got to be hardwired on some level, almost like ants. You know what I mean? Like the way ants, like, like worker bee ants, and they hoard and they like build. Like it's got to be some like, programming of the simulation that is just in there.
I think, going back to what we were talking about with food, I mean, food is definitely hardwired in there. Like we went through, through millions of years going through famines. It was like, if you find something that is dense in calories, you eat as much of it as you can and store, the only reason that our bodies store fat is to survive famines.
Yeah.
It's not good for us to be fat. It's not healthy.
I love thinking about history when we talk about this stuff, because it's just so interesting how there have been so many points along the road that things are different than the way they are now. But we're creatures that are stuck, like don't have a good context of history. And I just think about that all the time. Like people feel as though the way things are right now is the way that they've always been, but like they're not. And like, when you keep that in mind, you start to realize like, what's really possible and what's, what could happen, because there's a lot of variables.
Yeah, we're a blip. Who we are right now, it's such a blip. That's kind of the joke of the title of this podcast is, we are just a blip in where we're going, man. And so the idea that, this is the way shit is, people very quickly, very, very, very quickly have got to let go of that, because the shit is about to change. Like we never couldn't even in one person's lifetime, they've never seen anything. The only thing that will be close to this, what's happening with AI and everything else, The only thing close to this is maybe if you were around when people first started talking,
Sure.
you know, and you were just like, what is that? What are they doing? You know, you can't even fathom it.
Or like when they found fire, like when fire was discovered. Yeah.
When they found
that's where definitely
fire.
That's where we're headed for sure. It's
so
anyways, we just got to ride the wave.
Got to embrace it. You got to, you know, my philosophy is that, you know, we're here in I believe we're in a simulation anyways. We're in a simulation to watch the fireworks, man. As crazy and nuts as it gets, the better, you know? I mean, but yeah,
well, you know,
enjoy it.
Back to what we were talking about before, Brian Johnson, I feel like one of the positive things about people like him and you know, where things are going is like, you know, what I respected so much about his mission and, you know, commitment to longevity and ultimately, you know, hacking death, which, you know, we could debate that. But I think that, you know, using this technology as a means to reinvent what's possible as far as it means to be human, like, you know, that's a positive thing. You know what I mean? Like, that's something that's worthwhile to try and engineer. You know, not something that is, you know, purely like, it just felt that his desire was from a real human position of like, well, 100 years ago, if somebody would have said to you, you know, you could live to 85 and still be doing jujitsu with a magic computer in your pocket, you know, people would say, no way, that's not possible. So 100 years ago, it wasn't. But so who's to say that 100 years from now, you know, average age could be, you know, 176. People could be living 176, like the way we're living in a 70, 80, 90. And, you know, there's no value in saying like, no, that's not going to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then pushing the envelope, no doubt, assists us. That's what we, you know, at the end of the day. So, you know, what I really liked about his approach was that he's very, very, he uses objective measures, blood tests, things like that, MRIs all the time. And what he found was that it wasn't the blood transfusions. They really did nothing for him, right? What he found, like the number one thing that he found was sleep. And the reason I think this is so important and the reason sleep is so important is because the reality is that the key to everything, to performance, to aging, to all of it is recovery. We work out, we tear our bodies down, right? We introduce a stress. We do jujitsu, we introduce a stress. We eat wrong, we introduce a stress. We just go through life, we introduce stress, and stress causes inflammation and breaks the body down. And it's only when we recovery is the key to a longer health span. It's the key to everything. Sure. Everything.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And so he found that sleep was the number one thing, and he gears his entire day from the moment he opens his eyes towards getting better sleep.
Yeah.
More, not TRT, not HGH, not peptides, not all the other pharmaceutical bullshit. You know, with the problem to me with the whole hacking everything, you know, I like the biohacking. I think it's cool. It's interesting. But the reality is that what a lot of people do is they're hard charging, they're working their asses off, they're actually using work, what I find, as a coping mechanism, right? I don't feel worthy. So I need to work harder. And by working harder, I'm going to justify my existence.
Yeah, sure.
That's a problem.
That's a real thing.
That's a real fucking thing. That's why
Yeah.
I always find it kind of funny that in our society, we like elevate people who become super wealthy, right? We're a capitalist society. So they are the prophets of the capitalist religion. And so we elevate them. But a lot of these people are sociopaths, right?
Yeah.
They are sociopaths. And you want to put them on a pedestal and try and get advice from these people.
Yeah.
They're so unbalanced. And they're And so what happens is you get people who really, they want to charge really, really hard and then find the cheat to beat the system, right? Beat aging. So in other words, like Brian Johnson, I'm sure thought, okay, I want to take a drug or a blood transfusion to beat the system. But what he found was that he needed to sleep.
Yeah.
And you can't, that's not a hack, right? That's something that's very healthy. And so I love that about his approach. What's that?
It's nature's hack. It's the ultimate, it's what it's meant to do. We're supposed to shut off.
That's right. Shut off. And so that's what I found in Sicily was that these people, this ancient culture, in these ancient cultures, they know how to shut off. They shut off for 4 hours a day. But in America, because we have this religion that says to you, if you work, you'll justify your existence, it doesn't allow that.
So I'm going to the DR in 2 weeks for some business meetings. And I was just making an appointment today with somebody down there and I was trying to coordinate the times. And they messaged me back and they said, we can meet with you anytime between 9 and 12 and 2 and 5. And that gap in the middle of the day because they eat lunch for 2 hours and people go home to their house and that's amazing. You know what I mean? Like it's an amazing system that like is just self-prioritizing. You know what I mean? It's you're prioritizing they don't eat really good
family too, right? They're probably
100% with family. They go home to their house, they eat with their family, with their kids, with their wives, there's just something to be said for that, There's something to be said. You got to power down, man. You got to power down. Even the most ultimate machines, even the most elite machines, even the best of us that are, have incredible capability, we still have to shut down.
And it's hard, and that's, the one hack that to me is that, again, it's not that I'm anti-TRT, right? I don't take TRT. I've never taken TRT. And people are like, oh, you just have the genetics for it. And it's like, dude, I've shown pictures of me when I was 200 pounds and put on all that weight, put on that fat, right? And didn't have as much muscle. For me, if the reason people take TRT or steroids for athletes is to enhance their recovery, right? Sure. Athletes take PEDs, steroids, whatever, all of it to enhance their recovery, right? Yeah. But that is not natural. There are side effects with that. And 99% of the people that get on it, and I've helped numerous people get off of it because they start, after a few years, they start having side effects. They start getting more bloated. They start having crashes, wild crashes. I'm helping someone right now get off of it. And, but the reality is that we now know scientifically the best recovery tool that we can engage in, and that is shutting down, right? With HRV breathing, we've shown that. Andy Galpin the researcher, he said the most important thing we can do after a workout, I think Huberman asked him this. Dude, lay down in a dark room. So for me, it's I credit the ability to build muscle to very, very short workouts. So I'm not overtaxing my system, which allows greater recovery. We talked about that, but also meditation twice a day, 3 times a day, even if it's just for 10, 15 minutes, to bring the whole system down so then it can go into recovery mode.
Yeah.
Go into recovery mode.
Exercise, some sort of a controlled diet, and rest. It's like everybody can do that, but so few people do.
Here, I'll put on.
It's so easy to be like, yeah, dude, you do TRT, and like ignore, the amount of actual activity that you're engaging in, and that's it.
I know. Here's more of like Lenny Kravitz talking about, it's not only, I found him to be such a cool figure with this, not only because the dude freaking, I got a man crush on the dude.
He's cool as shit. I don't dig the women's clothing,
I got a man crush on him. Cool. So
No, I get it. I totally get it.
He's a musician. He's fucking great.
He's cool. Super cool.
He's very cool. Very cool. And he's 60. That is a picture of the dude at 60 years old.
Yeah, that guy's a 60-year-old guy to where like 25-year-old girls, beautiful women, are throwing themselves at him.
No, but Jesse, have you listened to an interview of him lately?
No, well, he doesn't engage because it's no good for you. That's another vice.
He said he's like 9 years celibate.
9 years celibate? Wow.
Yep.
That is insane. That is so crazy. Maybe, oh my God. Wow. That's hard to believe, man. That's hard to believe. He probably has like a couple of extra kids out there, and that's just his fucking line to like the baby mamas. There's no way. That's so crazy. Like, oh, can't be mine. I've been 9 years celibate. Impossible for that little dread-headed child who looks exactly like me. No, sir. Yo, that's wild.
Oh my gosh.
Blew my mind
dude.
with that.
I know, right? Well,
wow.
I'm sure that sometimes you eat enough ice cream after a while, you don't want any more ice cream.
I can see that. I can see how that's a thing. I can see maybe. I don't know. That's insane. 9 years though. That's extra.
Is God bless crazy you, or
God bless America. Wow.
But back to, I only said that because you triggered that in me, and I remember that. I forgot about that because I was like, "What?"
No, that's good. This is great content. Wow, Lenny. Wow.
I know, right? Insane, man. Insane. Yeah. So, anyways, the thing about Lenny, from the last video, but if you look at his routine, it really is the 3 things that he stresses in interviews is, when he's talking about aging and all that, is diet, vegan, right? Lifting weights, working out, and if you saw in the clip that I was playing, in this clip right here, he's showing his workout routine, he's like, see those weights? I've got like a couple dumbbells and that's it.
Yeah.
He's like, that's all you need.
Yeah.
Like you talk about minimalism, when I was traveling in the van, dude, I had some bands. I had, like 2 set. I think I had a 25-pound set of dumbbells and a 10-pound set. And that's all I did. That's all I had was a band. Yeah. And then I had like a bucket that I'd put a pillow on and I would do flies on. You know, that was COVID. There were no gyms. So, and I was in great shape. You don't fucking need anything else. Our minds want to make excuses. Oh, if as soon as I get this, then I'm going to do this. It's like, no. You have it all. Just get a set of dumbbells, you know.
Just got to start doing
dumbbells. Yeah, just start doing. And so the three things are, you know, he eats well. That's the rule. And he'll have waffles, you know, I'm sure on his cheat day, she said. 2, resistance training, you know, and 3 is social connection. He's like, I always have people around, you know, I always have my friends around. I love playing I play in a band, you know.
But he's not fucking any of his friends, though. Yeah? Social interaction, but no action. Fucking guy.
No action. But, you know, like, and as far as lifting, you know, I think that's another thing. Like, I think as far as training, like so many trainers, so silly what they put their clients through. But I really think that, you know me, I'm all about the 14-minute rule, you know, 14-minute lifting weights, very minimal, 14 minutes doing yoga. Right before we jumped on this podcast, I went in and did yoga. And I do kind of the same really, really short routine. And the thing that I was struck with as I was doing it this time, Jesse, was just like anything else. The more I do it consistently, the easier it is. Yeah, it's like, sure. It's like willpower is such a lie. It's so much bullshit. Just do it. Definitely. The more you do it, the more it's like going back to jujitsu, right? The more we train, the easier it is. But when you're out of it and you go on vacation and you've been 2 weeks and you step through the gym the first time, it's so effing hard. It's hard, but you just got to do it. You just got to go take it. And then after a while, it gets easy again. You know?
100%. 100%.
So, you know, and so, yeah. So Lenny, you know, 60, and he's also in his life. I think one of the things that came through in a couple of interviews I watched were, you know, he's just very, very much about emphasizing love and family and just love and family. He said it, I'm just trying to put love out into the world with my music. And I think that kind of an optimistic, you know, viewpoint where I think that's like that's something that we don't talk about enough in our society, is that negativity and people that like to dwell in negative things and talk shit on people and, you know, always critiquing and all blah, blah, blah. They let their minds run wild. They have no mental discipline, and that manifests itself in the body.
Sure.
You know, it's like we have to discipline the mind and say, if we're not going to engage, if I'm not going to eat Oreos all day, then why would I allow my mind to engage in negativity all the time? Like when you're online, especially when I was on the looking for a fight, you know, it put me out there to people, and all of a sudden, dude, you realize there are just people that are going to attack anybody for any reason all the time. And you have to learn to just go, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, we had a podcast for a while with like this dude who was on TikTok who had like a couple million followers, and we did it for a year, and it was a very quick intro into like how there was this whole subculture of people that followed him and then started to like follow us and just be so negative and mean and like, and it was just so interesting because it's like, what is this thing to where like you are to people that you don't know at all, like what's the fucking science there? Like what's the math? How does that happen? So wild.
People probably came at you and just where you were like, what is going on here, right?
Yes.
I know. I know. It's so insane. But
Like a mind
the cool
virus.
thing is, what's that?
Like a mind virus.
Yes, dude. You know what it is? I think is that this is really kind of a cool concept. Is I think that humanity is a big brain now, that because we're all connected, all the neurons are connected because of the internet. And within any organism, you have viruses. And I think that's what it is. Like a certain percentage of people, they're now connected and hooked up, and they're just full of hate.
Viral.
And they've got this fucking, and it's, but it's cool because it kind of teaches you can either sit there and engage with them, or you can just ignore it. Yeah, and to learn to ignore it is a skill. And then you develop that. And I think it helps you to just go, life, there's always negativity out there. You know, you can always find something to be negative about. You can always find something to complain about. You can always find something, an excuse to procrastinate, you know, whatever it is, you know?
Yep.
So anyways, last thing I will say, this was kind of a cool thing that Brian Johnson was kind of talking about. And I completely agree with these two things. He was talking about superfoods, and two of the superfoods that I eat every single day he was talking about that I saw videos on. Guess what they are?
I saw you post some cacao stuff the other day, so I'm making the assumption one of them's that. I don't know the other.
Yeah. So I'll go through the first one. The first one I've been using for like 10 years, and that is olive oil, extra virgin olive oil.
Yeah.
And so what I do is I go to Whole Foods, and they got a big tin of it, and I'll get like big $40 tin, and I put extra virgin olive oil in everything. I have salad every day with it. If I'm cooking beans, then I'll throw it in my beans. I'll even take it and I'll mix it in my coffee in the morning.
Sure.
And I'll blend it up. So extra virgin olive oil, it promotes autophagy, it promotes neurogenesis, all of it. It's so good. And the second one is chocolate. And what I do, I started doing this in Sicily. And I just learned about this too, this next fact about it. But what I'll typically do is I'll get baking chocolate 100%, and then I'll just mix it up with like hot chocolate with stevia or monk fruit with olive oil, and I'll blend it up, or I'll put it in like a chia seed pudding. I've got recipes
I do that.
for that. Like, do you like it?
I do most mornings. I do a chia seed pudding that's got like, you know, high percentage dark chocolate cacao. And I mix in some peanut butter.
That's awesome.
And that's usually like my first meal of the day. I'll have that. So I'll have that like after I train.
Mm-hmm. So you saw what I posted, they were saying that it just came out that dark chocolate, actually, if you have like two cups of hot chocolate, then it will double the stem cells in your blood. And I was like, whoa. So yeah, superfood, man, those two things.
Love it.
Yeah, so cool. All right, man, this was a good one. Again, I think it's interesting because I think at some points we'll go back and we'll cover like some of these topics that we're going into. And I think the whole the enlarging health span and what people are doing with that. Like, one of the things I know people are doing is using like red light therapy. I don't know anything about that. Have you done it? I have a friend
who I've done a little bit, like when I operation on the shoulder and like recovery from shoulder surgery. But I didn't do enough of it to really give you like, I have a friend he's like an athletic trainer, and he's got a practice, and he goes and he treats people. He works with a lot of athletes and stuff. And he's very, very big on it. But you know,
so is it red light? Is it red light therapy, or is it red light like where they're putting it into a muscle? Are you sitting in front of something? Or you?
Yeah, it's light on you. So,
So
like,
what
he
if
had
you
one
live
that
in
was,
what
like,
if you live on
mounted.
the equator and you're outside in the sun all the time? Do you think there's any benefits beyond that? What does red light give you that you don't get from the sun?
I don't know enough about it. I don't know. We should look into it.
Yeah, let's look into that. I want to know more about that.
I
know
have,
that's
like, the
becoming
sauna that I have
like
in
a
my
big
house
thing.
supposedly has like those settings and stuff. I just turn them all on. Say, all right, give me all the benefits.
Do you use it?
Yeah, I use it. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, sweet. It's got.
I mean, I think, like, it's hard for me to determine things on myself because it's like,
I know
I'm in pretty good shape. You know what I mean? Like, my skin's still good. Other than fucking losing my hair, I'm pretty solid. You know what I mean? So I guess because of the rate at which I move, I guess a lot of the things that I am doing are working and are effective. But I don't tend to think too much in that way. I make sure I do the things that I need to do because I just don't feel well if I'm not taking care of myself.
Yeah.
And, maybe there's vanity attached to it, but whatever it takes
Who
to get it done. Yeah. Whatever it takes to get it done that's what's, the fact that it's getting done.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, I could be a beneficiary of red light therapy without even knowing it.
I want to look into that because I don't know enough about it. So yeah, maybe we'll look into that
Cool.
for the next time. All right, brother.
Cool.
This was awesome. Right, we will we'll do it again next time. Oh, I wanted to ask you.
Yes, sir.
I always want to know, what are you into? Have you been watching anything? Any carve outs? Anything you're reading? Anything you're watching?
I just listened to Rich Roll. Just had a podcast with Phil Stutz. He's a therapist, but he became famous because he was Jonah Hill's therapist, the actor. And Jonah Hill, he did a documentary on him on Netflix.
On Netflix, right?
I didn't see the documentary, but I listened to the conversation with him and Rich Roll. And, like, this is a New York guy who talks. He's old. He's, like, probably in his 70s. He's got he's hard to understand a little bit because he's got Parkinson's. But what an amazing, amazing man. I highly recommend you check that out.
What'd you get out of it, in short?
Just a continuation of everything that you and I talk about how, where we can't solve the problems by pushing harder, and we can't solve the problems by, working harder, like, only by going inward and, like, establishing real true, like, self-validation and like what you said, like worthiness and all that kind of stuff. Like, and embracing with love and universal love and things like that, like, powerful, but, like, and not in a woo woo kind of, like, oh man, this guy's, yeah, like, because whenever it's, like, too woo woo, and that's a technical term.
You check out.
You know what I mean? Yeah, a little bit, but, like, this guy, rides the line between, the esoteric, but also the practical and the here and now. And that, I love that. That, to me, is my favorite version of, philosophical pursuits, because there's got to be a faith-based component, because we know we don't know everything. We know that physics has figured out most of it, but there's still an open window in the back of the house. And so understanding that there's always going to be a faith component, but then putting that together with actionable, tactical, real world, like, this is shit that you can do to try to be better. Like, I love that.
Wow. I'll watch that documentary and maybe we'll talk about that. That'll be a good subject.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Mine is so much more shallow.
What do you got?
I wish that I could top that, but I can't even. So I'm going to go the complete opposite direction. This last week, I watched, I actually listened to a podcast in which they were going back. I don't remember the name of it, but they are going back through movies in the 80s. And the first podcast got me excited to go back and watch this movie. So I watched Demolition Man with Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes and Sandra Bullock. And so it was
I remember that. I remember, like, watching that at my parents' house, like, on, like, a TV that you have to turn the channels like this. Yeah, that's amazing.
Exactly. But very cool because, you know, it reminded me of us because, you know, it's projecting this is what the future is going to be like. And this is what,
Yeah.
so it was really cool. Everyone in the movie is celibate. So just so you know, they only have sex virtually. There's no exchanging fluids. So everything's virtual.
That's probably how Lenny's doing it. He's got some kind of hack.
Something's going on, right?
Something's going on.
All right, brother. Until next time, man.
Awesome. Hell yeah.